Holiness, precious Garland. And so we are going to begin with the introductory prayers. We just made prostrations, and we'll do the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta. And before that, actually, we'll do the mandala offering, and then the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta. Okay, so outer mandala offering in English as well as Tibetan. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and light, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Gamniratayami. Yadan Jodi Yanam Na Janjo Badu Dani Jasu Nagi Junye Jipe Zonam Jola Benji Sanje Rupa Yadan Jodi Yanam Na Janjo Badu Dani Jasu Dagi Chunye Jipe Zonam Jola Benji Sanje Rupa Yadan Ye Yonam Janju Badu Dani Yasuchi Dagi Chinye Jipe Zonam Rola Benji Sanye Rumayo. Okay, so today we'll get started with Nagarjuna's Precious Garland. I just have to figure out what stanzas. Anyone know the stanza we left off on? I'm sure it's right on my phone. Is my phone right there, hon? Thanks. It'll be right there. There's not a text from Lich?
No. Okay. I know the class before we ended at 323.
Okay, I can figure it out. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like 10 stanzas. That's funny. Okay, we did that.
Where's Rich in your phone?
Hal? Nothing?
No, I'm seeing if I go back though.
Oh, it's fine. We're fine. All right, so we're gonna start at 355 because I know that we went through those stanzas.
381, we just texted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lich. Okay, so I'm gonna back it up just a tiny bit. I'm gonna back it up, though. It's a very difficult section, so I'm going to back it up to 356, and we'll go through it, and just if there's any commentary in there Rinpoche would like to add, we'll do so. Because I know that we went through the inability for the apprehender to simultaneously apprehend more than one thing last class, and I see that right around there, and that I know that that was an emphasis, so I just want to make sure that from a commentary standpoint, we get it all in there, even though we may have some redundancy. Okay. Sumja ngap chu ngasun. Sumja.
Sumja.
The datare. This sumja ngap chu ngasun.
Sumja ngasun.
Wambo yin. Listen. Sumja ngap chu ngasun. The wambo. The Lamrim this shit got it. I'm a wrench and chum. Lesser. Lesser. So today teaching Nagarjuna's this is a text that was written to a king in order to show that king how to be a Buddhist while being a king, and also how to run a kingdom from the point of view of a Buddhist. So how would you set up the social systems and so forth if you were a Buddhist and a king? So if you had power over that many people, how would you then go about running your kingdom? So the contents of this text are very, very similar, are exactly the same, if you will, as far as the meaning, as the contents of the stages of the path teachings. So we previously went over the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa for over 10 years. So we're really have a foundation that's incredible to be able to understand this information, because the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and the Lamrim teachings in general give a very specific order to the teachings and show how a practitioner is able to begin from wherever he or she is at in order to become, and then end as a Buddha, so from wherever he or she is to the state of enlightenment, of Buddhahood. So the Lamrim teachings are put in an order. There are graduated stages that show that practitioner how he or she is able to go from where they are at to that state of Buddhahood. So unfortunately, if we look at the precious Garland, it's not set out in that format or order. All of the information is in it, but the information isn't put in stages in a way that a practitioner would practice it from beginning, from where he or she is at, to Buddhahood. So if you utilize the Lamrim teachings and the summary of all the Buddhist teachings, you'll find that you can plug them into this precious garland and figure out exactly where on the path Nagarjuna is speaking of. And it will help to elucidate that path and elucidate the teachings on emptiness and elucidate the teachings on ethics and concentration in order to show a practitioner exactly how to, in a subtle way, understand these teachings. And then this, if we look at this, I was just reading the Lama Tsongkhapa's Golden Garland of Eloquence, and it speaks about Nagarjuna's treatises. And it says that we always say 6 treatises of Nagarjuna, and we add in this precious garland, but it's really should be 5, and these are separate texts. But the reason that is done is because the content is precisely that in terms of emptiness of the root wisdom text and the 60 stanzas on emptiness, etc. So it's interesting to see how this one text can be magnified, and you can find the root wisdom text, and you can find some of the other teachings, and you also actually find quite a bit of the Rinpoche, the Gombalodru, Ruma Rinchen Chirwa, the Uma Kuna Yomare, Parshin Nangla Detsude, Yomaribe. Lamrim. So yeah, so it's not only just the specific about emptiness. We see that the perfection of wisdom teachings are in there, and all of the other teachings in a similar way to the Lamrim. Whereas some texts are just focused on emptiness, this text has a real potpourri, if you will, of all of the teachings that you would find in order to become enlightened. Because we know that wisdom and emptiness alone will not let you become a Buddha. We find in the Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, that on the 2 wings of method and wisdom, the golden goose flies over to the other side of suffering. To the other side is meaning from cyclic existence to freedom from that as a Buddha. So you need method and wisdom in order to go to that other side. So emptiness alone is not enough. So Dikson Rinpoche. Desko. So when we look at, I'm going to very quickly summarize these. When we look at the teachings for beings of 3 capacities, therefore 3 specific results, motivations that a practitioner has in order to practice. The small scope, which is the first category of teachings, teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, is for a practitioner is motivated by the sufferings of the lower realms and so forth. That makes he or she want to definitely get out of them and then practice going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, engaging in ethics that abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then acknowledging downfalls. In dependence upon that, the Buddha said one would be able to be free of the lower realms and have a higher realm rebirth. Lower realms are the hell-hungry ghost and animal. Higher realms are the higher realms are the human, demigod, and God. So this practitioner wishes to achieve rebirth in the higher realms, so he or she practices that. These are the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity. The next category of the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, this is for a practitioner who recognizes the downfalls of not only the lower realms, but also the higher realms of cyclic existence. And he or she wishes to definitely emerge. That's a literal translation of renunciation, a wish to definitely emerge from cyclic existence. The Buddha said that this practitioner practices the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity and couples them with the 3 highest higher trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom in order to achieve their own individual nirvana and the abandonment of the afflictive obstructions. But they still have the obstructions to omniscience, which are present because there's imprints of those afflictive obstructions. And those can only be negated or gotten rid of by combining the small and the medium scope with what is called the teachings for beings of great capacity. One practices the small and medium scope and then generates the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Renunciation is a desire to definitely emerge for oneself. Bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, is a mind that wishes to free sentient beings from their suffering, to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, to free all sentient beings from their suffering. So you want them to definitely emerge. Renunciation is you wanting to definitely emerge, great compassion, and then bodhicitta is you wanting them to definitely emerge and being part of that process, an integral part of that process, and knowing that only a Buddha can really help that being. So this is how the teachings are summarized and show how one can be free from the lower realms, be free from cyclic existence, and then become a Buddha. And these are all of the teachings that we find in the Lamrim, the graduated stage of the path teachings, and the contents are exactly the same in this text. Digson.
我不因的没做吧，这边有些那巴拉，也就每年都把那都要做弄不的事。当我说要了说通了，
Less so.
我呢在那时候通，这通那边一起吧了，我对我的事，真的我这边影响那做，我就这个事，弄不的事。
Nanje, Sena, Nanje.
弄不是那我这种。
Ale, pleasurable. Nanje, Gapudu, Nanje, Nanje. They don't go to Rinpoche, Nanje. Okay, pride. Okay. The mind so stanza 353 is where we're going to begin. The mind apprehends an object of a past object, which has been apprehended by the senses and imagines and fancies it to be pleasurable. So here it says how the apprehension of an object and the reaction to it takes place is an interdependent relationship. We have a sense power that powers a sense consciousness. And if we look at it in terms of apprehending an image or a form, so the eye consciousness, powered by the eye sense power, apprehends the form. So it depends upon there being a form, a collection of something that it apprehends. And then the apprehension takes place, and it's almost like a camera is bringing it back to the mental consciousness. So it's like there's a video that then goes back to the mental consciousness, and the eye sense power and consciousness don't interpret it at all. It's just sending it this image. Then the mental consciousness is interpreting the image that it's sending, and then it decides how it puts it together and whether it likes it, depending on karma or not. You know, if it's virtue, then it'll make it you see something that's attractive and desirable. And attractive means something you like, not just the physical, just attractive to you. Delicious food is attractive. So what happens is the virtuous karma then creates this, this is attractive feeling, and then labels it first as what it is, and then puts their kind of quality on it. So it's like car, good car kind of situation. So all this interdependence is taking place. And then a pride kind of occurs, Rinpoche said, this pride of self, this I, this real strong grasping at I, this pride occurs that is, and it's like a pride that's like it's I, the sense of I. Within the word pride in Tibetan, it's this sense of I am something. So it's this grasping at I is within it. So it's not just, it's this real sense of I am this. So I feel good now. I love that thing I see. So all of these things come together, then we label it. We label it as this or that and label a kind of thing, whether we like it on it or not. Some kind of, you know what I mean. So that's what this first stanza is talking about. So, Bushasa. The yiptum the lezu, the natsu yichi napa sheba, the dagu, the garishin, the sanodan, then the mota yapo, the mota yakshu, the mingi dagu, the lasa. Okay, I just told them a little bit of extra commentary. Rinpoche has asked me to expand on his teachings. So anyone speaking Tibetan out there, realize that he has asked me to do this. If you hear extra information, and any information that you hear, I will challenge you not to find in a previous teaching of his, because I would never say something he did not teach before. Zumena the Namgyal Yongomare, the Yoruba, Dendel Yimbiju. Okay.
Then I want to chicken, Geshe Lharampa, that make it should be so sugar, now you should be that sugar. They are to me, they are to me, pardon me. They are to me, pardon me. Cheta Pata Matala, then a Benujuntas, Pamela ten Bogunes,
Less so.
they made the Zula ten, and then Nabashaba Childers, Zula ten Mishi, rather than a nice Shibal. The Chivate, Swanji, Sonju,
Less so.
Juma she is,
Less so.
Kalejun.
Less so. Nyonwa She, 55. Okay, the mind, also the one sense which here in the world is said to know one object is meaningless without an object, and the object also is meaningless without it. So there's an interdependence. There isn't any kind of reaction without the object, but there isn't any kind of name put on that object. It's just sitting out there as a collection without the naming of the mental consciousness. So there's an interdependence. For it to come into being as this or that, and for a labeling of something, there has to be this or that. So we see that there's an interdependence, and the object is also meaningless. It has no meaning until it's labeled. It doesn't have a sense of good car, bad car, best car. It doesn't have any of that until it's labeled. So that's what it says here. Just as a child is said to be born in dependence on a father and a mother, so a visual consciousness is said to arise in dependence on an eye sense on a form. So it's showing how cause and effect takes place, how there isn't some single solitary object that's from its own side as this or that. There's a play at work. There's interdependence that's taking place that's then being labeled by a mental consciousness being pushed around by karma, by previous actions. So it's saying, just like a child is born because a mother and father, a sperm and an egg, conception, and then birth takes place, that child is not independent. That child came into being through a collection of causes and conditions, just like the experience of an object that we have. The object itself doesn't have within it that experience from its own side. We make it into that by labeling it as this or that and the subtleties that we label around it. So it's, Rinpoche said that the I sense power powers the I consciousness that apprehends a form. The nose sense power powers the nose sense consciousness that smells a smell, and so on. And so the ear sense power powers an ear consciousness that then hears a sound. So all of those things are applicable in the same way as realizing a form. Sound is heard because an ear sense power powers an ear sense consciousness, ear consciousness, and then that ear consciousness then attaches to a sound it hears, brings it back in the same way through the ear power into the mental consciousness, and then that mental consciousness says that's a good sound. I like that sound. I hate that sound. The sound from its own side doesn't have that experience of I like that, I hate that, it's good, it's bad within it, because it's interdependent. It's not truly established as a good sound or a bad sound or a good form or a bad form. It's merely empty. It isn't non-existent. It's merely interdependent. Past and future objects and the senses. Okay, that's it.
Cheta mene truwa yin, gami kolo, zinsheba, tijin opana jine, tati yudan zinbashi.
Ngamangatsu chisa.
Cheta mene truwa yin, gami kolo mandus kurajona,
Lessa.
kolo nangares.
Lessa.
Kolo, gami kolo zinsheba, tijin opana jine, tata yudan zinbashi.
Lessa.
That make it soon to now you should be done.
The trouble do.
On but on the one danger de Yuan Najaraji, the Obo, not the Obi, Yuan's logres,
Less so.
Rajin, Yuan Susu term, Terme, Tada turn to Terme to Yuan Susu turned the Daba Druba Yoma, Daba Drubi turn maybe,
Maybe.
Tada,
Okay.
Daba Druba Meadows.
Less so. Less so.
Yuan Susu Tatena, Kushi maybe Method euros. Yuan Susu Tatena, Kushi Mabala, she Mabala Manjuatan is. Yuna Seni Manjute Hamala and Tatange.
Deta Jean.
The Tar
Jean.
Juna Nani so, the Tar Juna Nani so, Yame Pene, Dusheme. The Batu with Nemaba Izan, and the Teshim Dushid Mares. You but the men Yisher Zujan, Tondo, Demetos,
Less so.
Dubate, the Batu with Nemabisher, Dubate on the Batu with Mares, the Bamarubares.
Less so.
Nashi Sudan, Dushetan, Dushi Natan, Najan Tadeto, Susudani, Temesher, Sami Tonto Temetos, what is on the Marubares,
Less so.
and the image,
Less so.
what is on the
Less so.
Chetar Dune, Shijula, Tonto Deva, Najeshi. Chetar Dune, Shijula, Tonto Deva, Deva Jidu and Najeshi.
Less so.
The Jungala, Dungan Toyang, Majeshes. Then you, the Jungala, Dungan Toyang, Dungan Majeshi by Yung Siglis.
Rinpoche. Namgyal, Chipa.
Nachi,
Okay. Self-chasson. Self-chasson.
Chetar Dungan, Shijula,
Paper towel.
Tonto, Deva, Majeshi. The Jungala, Dungan Toyang Majeshes. Jungal Dungan Jebalayan.
Ngacho,
Amazing on the
Tuche.
Majejo, you are this.
Tuche.
The Drango, Yemesher,
Thank you.
doesn't chebi, Sibatan, Dungan Sibabon. Dungan Siban de Jat Bon Boris. The Jet that ton true. And this was on that. And they using the Mamma to quality.
Less so.
Can't get one, Josina. Tanya to send you. To get the Sudan, send it one. Tanya to send you. Tanya to send you there. Shoot was in the second one.
Less so.
Council and send some more. Send over there. Send over this.
Less so.
Send you member, send you. Send you member, send you Maris.
Less so.
So then about ambition.
Less so.
The very legend to Tatayana, Chijindo, what they mentioned, and you may by imagine to Lemon, Young and Das, quality Tabatus. The Television Jews and be young. One shoot, Gamble. Then in Nijin Bajiki, Shanchu Badu, 600 euros. Shambat and Niji Waki, Sanju Bombo Batu, quality Sanju, Jewel.
Less so.
The ship is teaching lay, the ship is teaching lay, Shanju Samba. To Dana, Tela, Gundo, Mobana, Rado Daya, Mobashi, Yunden Junta Mesheban, Yunden Junto Dosheban, Yana Yunden Dawashi, Tibachilla, Moji Tang, Yella Neba Junta, Yella Bemba Yunden, Shin Tibachambula, Yunden Dawashi Jews, Yunden Dawashi Jews.
Less so.
Dayu Shishu Jegus, Dayu, and the Shendala, what in Ajaba, Kachayo Maris, Tune, Savashes, 2 members were Tunis women. Cheta Mechi, Sexin, Donation, November, Savashai, Tishi, Gay. Chuna Tonto, Yendojin, Chuna Tonto Yendojin, Zola Tena Sheban Jungre, then Ajita Otoson Desert, in a Su She, Trabe, Dune Chejang, Peijen, Pemba Sheba, Shema Ben, Dune Sheba, Pengan Dusan, Pemba Sheba, Maped Kanem, Maped, Pengaris, Maduayan, Sheje Penjoa, Shana Datan, Yendala, Helen Tashi Penjigo, Chunenai, Luino, Kete de Chun, Yendangwe, Dwa Jachin, Tunjuna, Dambi Dwa, Nozilla, Dwa Chun Tangandus.
Then the Donagar, Shariputra, Namchen Yomare, Dan Sunsan Kon, the Ju Rimbo Tontogamare. The let's go. Jechu Jenga, 385.
85.
This. Gelde.
Kete de Chun, Yontangu, Dwa Chun, Yonsutama in Tangu, De Chen, Dwa Jachin, Tonjuna, Tembe Dwa, Yonzilla, Dwa Chun Tangandus.
The Shariputra. The Shariputra, the Nguji Pacha, then Ju Rimbo Tontogamaribe. Then Amachran Loju, Mambo Tonson, they may Rang Segare, they may Gengo, they drop a Jago, Lo Jeju, and drop a Jago. Then Yene, Shariputra, Sumpare, Chiran drop a Jago Mari, Chiran, the Lo Chambodu. Then they call Naran Segare. Chiran that Lago. Okay, so the dead school, near the NGK Lagare, Mamudu. Okay. Then they Chishin and Trille, Mamudu. Let's see. Past and future objects and the senses are meaningless. So too are present objects, since they are not distinct from these two. So the objects of past and the object of present don't have meaning because they are not, when it says meaningless, it's referring to not being truly established. They are not truly established. Past objects, present objects, meaningless means they don't have true existence. They don't have inherent existence. Just as do, and by the way, anyone following along, Rinpoche is fully aware we are going over stuff we went over before. He's just said he'd like to go slower over some of the stanzas. So that's what we're doing. Just as due to the error, the eye perceives a whirling firebrand as a wheel, so the senses apprehend present objects as if real. So if you see someone spinning a torch around in a circle. It looks like there's an actual fire circle there, but it's just someone moving it very fast. In the same way, there's just a whole bunch of interdependence happening very fast when you're apprehending an object, and it seems like it's just something over there that's real, the way that you apprehend it to be, but there's a whole lot of movement going on of power, consciousness, an object, karma, and all of these different things in order for that experience to happen. It's not just a circle of fire. There's someone spinning it, and then there's fire that had to be made, and then there's a torch that had to be made, etc., etc. That form had to be made, the form has to be apprehended, the form has to be interpreted, and then all of a sudden you think it's just a form that's there, like you think of there's a circle of fire. Sheda Sopaldu Tering Rinpoche, the senses and their objects are regarded as being composed of the elements. Since the elements are meaningless individually, these also are meaningless in fact. So when you start to, if you've already negated what something's composed of, and you've negated its true existence, and you've negated it, meaning its inherent existence, then you can easily negate that which it composes. These are also meaningless in fact. If the elements are each different, it follows that there could be fire without fuel. If mixed, they would be characterless. Such is also to be ascertained about the other elements. So each of the elements has this interplay that's going on. They don't have anything inherently from their own side. It's not a mix of them that makes it one. It's something that is apprehended as a singular object of apprehension in some way. So if the elements are each different, so it's saying that the elements compose us, for instance. So how could there be us without the elements? It's saying like fire without fuel. So we're a collection of those elements. And it's saying that if it was just, they were somehow one, all that 5 elements could somehow be posited as one, then they wouldn't have character. So that's what it means. If the 4 elements were completely intermingled, they would lose their individual characters. We know that the earth element causes rigidity, and the fire element causes warmth. The earth element doesn't cause warmth. So they have their individual characteristics that we assign. Because the elements are thus meaningless in both these ways, so too is a composite, because a composite is meaningless. So too are forms meaningless, in fact. So it's just starting to negate all compounded phenomena, all composite phenomena, and then it will negate the true establishment of even permanent phenomena. Also because consciousness, feelings, discrimination, and compositional factors all together and individually or without essential factuality, pleasures are not ultimately meaningful. So this pride that we have that comes about from this kind of understanding of our world and what we're labeling isn't truly established. It isn't meaningful. This experience is nothing more than interdependence taking place in labeling. Just as lessening of pain is fancied to be pleasure, in fact, so destruction of pleasure is fancied to be pain. Thus, attachment to meeting with pleasure and attachment to meeting separating from pain are to be abandoned because they do not inherently exist. Thereby, those who see thus are liberated. Abandon meaning their actual inherent existence is what you are abandoning. The grasping at them as being and truly existent, not grasping at them as not being an experience. It is an experience. If you don't think it's an experience, then that's nihilism. The experience is taking place. It's just not inherently existent. It just doesn't, there isn't just pleasure that's there or pain that's there. Because you know you could still be in pain, but if the pain's lessened a little, there's pleasure involved in that. So it's mere labeling and interpretation. Thus, attachment to meeting with pleasure and attachment to separating from pain are to be abandoned because they do not inherently exist. Thereby, those who see thus are liberated. What sees reality? Conventionally, it is said to be the mind. So what apprehends emptiness? It says that the consciousness, the mind apprehends emptiness. For without mental factors, there is no mind, and hence mind and mental factors are meaningless, due to which it is not asserted that they are simultaneous. So in order for the mind to work, there has to be a mental, there has to be all of this other interplay. taking place within the consciousness, the mental consciousness. So in order for there to be apprehension, there has to be all of this interdependence. So the mind itself is not inherently existent because it dependently originates. And that's the only sign that you need to present in order to prove that. So it is the mental consciousness. It's not any of the other sense powers or sense consciousnesses that apprehend reality, because it's the interpretive part, the mental consciousness, that actually apprehends reality. Knowing thus correctly, just as it is, the transmigrating beings do not exist in fact. One passes from suffering, not subject to rebirth, and hence without appropriating rebirth, like a fire without its cause. So if you know this correctly, what causes this our being propelled into cyclic existence isn't there. The cause isn't there, the result cannot be there. So just like a fire isn't have a cause, there's no fire. Bodhisattvas also, who have seen it thus, seek perfect enlightenment with certainty. They make connection between lives until enlightenment only through their compassion. So it's saying that it's a continuum of lives. One could read that and say, oh, they learn about their past lives and then they somehow can become Buddhas. No, it's saying there's a connection between their previous lives to now that caused karma and that have caused the imprints and that all of this stuff within the consciousness to be there. And these lives are what leads up to that. So there's not an inherent existence of anything there. Even the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, is led up to by renunciation, by bodhicitta, etc. One passes like a fire. Bodhisattvas also have seen it thus, seek perfect enlightenment with certainty. They make the connection between lives until enlightenment only through their compassion. The collections of merit and wisdom of bodhisattvas were taught by the one thus gone in the great vehicle. Those who are bewildered about the full extent of the paths and fruits of the great vehicle deride them out of antagonism. So those who don't believe in Mahayana, those who say that the great vehicle is fake, those who say that the Heart Sutra is the teaching of the Buddha. There are Hinayanist practitioners who assert that the Four Noble Truths, the first turning of the wheel, is the teaching, and that the teachings on Madhyamaka and so forth, are nihilism and are not words of the Buddha. So this is who Nagarjuna is talking to. Those practitioners who think that the Prajnaparamita is not the word of the Buddha, basically. Where did I just go? Since the collections of merit and wisdom of bodhisattvas were taught by the one thus gone in the great vehicle, those who are bewildered about the full extent of the paths and fruits of the great vehicle deride them out of antagonism, either through not knowing the good qualities of altruism and the defects of mere self-concern, or identifying good qualities as defects, or through despising good qualities, they deride the great vehicle. So whether it's out of ignorance or out of ignorance and not understanding that these teachings are authentic, they don't recognize good qualities and they see them as defects, and they see the defects of seeing this as not accurate as a good quality, and then they deride the great vehicle. They deride the Mahayana teachings. Those who deride the great vehicle, knowing that to harm others is defective and to help others is a good quality, are said to despise good qualities. So how could you like good qualities if you don't like the great vehicle? Because the great vehicle's sole purpose is to help others, to be a benefit of others. So it means that you must not like good qualities of it all if you despise the Mahayana. Those who despise the great vehicle, source of all good qualities, in that it teaches taking delight solely in the aims of others due to not looking to one's own, consequently burn themselves in bad transmigrations. One type with faith and emptiness forsakes it, through misconception of it as denying cause and effect. Others who are angry forsake emptiness through despising it. If even the faithful type is said in the sutra to be burned, what can be said about those who turn their backs on it or through despising it? So it's a great negativity, a great amount of non-virtue to despise the Mahayana, because the Mahayana is about being of benefit to all beings. So if you despise benefiting all beings, it's a great amount of negativity. So if you look at why Mahayana and why bodhicitta is such a great amount of virtue, because the object of observation is all sentient beings, a number we can't even imagine. So we're having this thought to benefit all of them. Imagine if we think that that we despise that idea, then it's saying that aren't we then just despising good qualities? Aren't we then despising all of these sentient beings' health or wellness? So it's saying, imagine how negative that is. So it's just being very strong language in the Tibetan, in the original Sanskrit. So, and it's saying, even if someone with faith in the Buddha has this, then they have an enormous amount of non-virtue. Imagine someone who has no faith, the amount of non-virtue. Just as it is explained in medicine that poison can be removed by poison, what contradiction is there in saying that what is injurious in the future can be removed by suffering? It is renowned in the great vehicle scriptures that motivation determines practices and that the mind is most important. Hence, how could even suffering not be helpful for one who gives up help with an altruistic motivation? That's pentogu. So the suffering we need to look at as a virtuous thing. It's because of suffering, someone's suffering, that we can generate compassion, that we can generate bodhicitta. Our suffering causes us to want to get out of cyclic existence. It causes renunciation. So in the text, they say over and over again that suffering is an excellent quality. And then you have to interpret what that means. If in ordinary life pain can bring future benefit, what need is there to say that accepting suffering beneficial for one and own others' happiness will help? This practice is known as the policy of the ancients. So sometimes you have to take medicine that makes you sick at first, but then it heals you. In the same way, suffering can be like that. It can be an object that at first makes you sick, makes you uncomfortable, but then heals you because you renounce it. So it's just saying that it's a motivator. Suffering is a motivator for a bodhisattva and for someone from their own side. It says, if through relinquishing small pleasures there is an extensive happiness later, seeing the greater happiness, the resolute should relinquish small pleasures. If such things cannot be borne, then doctors giving distasteful medicines would disappear. It is not reasonable to forsake great pleasure for the small. So we already are willing to have a little suffering for good. We already are doing that in our worldly life. Doctors wouldn't give you something that made you sick to heal you if no one would take it. So people take that. People are willing to have a little suffering to feel well later. Why not be willing to have a little suffering to never have suffering again? To have a pure antidote, a pure medicine. If things, sometimes what is thought harmful is regarded as helpful by the wise. General rules and their exceptions are commended in all treatises. Who with intelligence would deride the explanation of the great vehicle of deeds motivated by great compassion of stainless wisdom, feeling inadequate about its great extent and profound depth? Untrained beings, foe of themselves and others nowadays deride the great vehicle because of bewilderment. The great vehicle has a nature of giving, ethics, patience, effort, concentration, wisdom, and compassion. Hence, how could it be any bad explanations of it? So during this time, remember, this is in Nalanda Monastery time in ancient India, where there were a lot of disputes about the teachings. It was a lot closer to the time of when the first Buddhist council and the Buddhist councils took place, and they said that these teachings were real. It was 900 years. What is it? The Gombo Lodru, Shacha Tupa Lo Gochu Jema? Gocha. 900? All a quote. Okay, so we find a quote in scripture from Buddha Shakyamuni. I won't be able to quote it exactly like Rinpoche just did, three stanzas, but it says that in the future, when there is decline in the teachings, oh, here it is. Okay, hold on. Mahatma, no, after the one gone to bliss has passed away, there will appear after the passage of time one who will uphold the ways of emptiness, the essence of the teaching, the Longyure. In the south, in the area of Vidrabharba, will be a monk known widely as Shriman, who will be called Naga, destroying the extreme poisons of inherent existence and conventional non-existence. He will thoroughly teach in the world the unsurpassed great vehicle, my vehicle. Having done this, he will achieve the very joyful ground and then go to the blissful pure land passing away. Kon sa tambo, then yanan le deba the dewachen pigre.
Dewa chen dan rosu.
Satambo.
Kunyangal rotuga satam rotuga.
So yeah, that's it. So he will be a being who achieves the first ground and then goes to the Pure Land when he passes. So here, Buddha prophesies Nagarjuna and prophesies that Nagarjuna would come and be the one to bring the great vehicle back. Now, there would be a decline in the great vehicle. People wouldn't believe in it. And Nagarjuna was prophesied to come and clear it. Just as a Sangha also was prophesied to come later. So all of these beings were prophesied. So it's a much closer time to the Buddha when there was more controversy and more ignorance about the teachings in relation to what was actually a teaching of Buddha or not. There was great debate that took place in the Nalanda monasteries. Where did feeling inadequate about its great extent and profound depth, untrained beings, foes of themselves and others nowadays to ride the great vehicle because of bewilderment. The great vehicle has a nature of giving, ethics, patience, effort, concentration, wisdom, and compassion. Hence, how can there be any bad explanations of it? Others' aims are achieved through giving and ethics. One's own are achieved through patience and effort. Concentration and wisdom are causes of liberation. These epitomize the sense of the great vehicle. So these teachings that you practice in the lesser vehicle, Nagarjuna is saying, and consider excellent qualities are the core qualities found in the great vehicle. So why do you put them down if you agree with us? The aims of benefiting oneself and others and the meaning of liberation, as briefly taught by the Buddha in the hearer's vehicle, are contained in the six perfections. Therefore, these scriptures of the great vehicle are the word of the Buddha. Those blind with ignorance cannot stand this great vehicle where Buddha taught the great path of enlightenment, consisting of merit and wisdom. Conquerors are said to have inconceivable good qualities because the causal good qualities are inconceivable like the sky. Therefore, let this great nature of a Buddha explained in the great vehicle be allowed. Even Buddha's ethics were beyond the scope of Shariputra. So why is the inconceivable great nature of a Buddha not accepted? So we're going to end there, and Rinpoche wanted me to just tell a story. So Shariputra was a Hinayana practitioner. Shariputra did not achieve the state of Buddha. He had he was practicing the Hinayana vehicle. So because of not removing the obstructions to omniscience, his ability to see and understand phenomena was limited, was not in an all-knowing sense. He understood the nature of reality, but he wasn't able to see very, very far, even into like people's past lives, if people ask questions and so forth, because the Buddha, he was not omniscient and the Buddha was. So there's a story of, a 80-year-old man who wanted to become ordained. And he went to Shariputra and he asked Shariputra to be ordained. He said, I want to be a monk. And Shariputra said, no, I'm sorry, you're too old. It doesn't make any sense. You've already passed the age where it'll be of benefit. No, I won't ordain you. There's no need. So then the older gentleman, if you're 13, you're older than 12. Older gentleman became very depressed and saddened by this and said, well, if I can't do what I feel is the most important thing for me to do, I might as well end this life, because then in my next life, I'll be young again and I can then maybe become a monk or a nun. So then he goes down to the river to drown himself and commit suicide. And the Buddha, because of his great compassion and omniscience, sees this happening. And the Buddha shows up, right? All of a sudden, the Buddha's standing there in the sand, right at the river's bed or whatever, the water's edge, the ocean's edge. And he says, why are you doing this, sir? And he said, well, I went to Shariputra, and Shariputra said that I don't have any need to become a monk, and that's all I want to do. So I'm going to kill myself and hope that, and make this aspiration while I'm doing it, that I can be born into a place so I can become a monk. So then Buddha said, no. And Buddha basically said, Korsum, Shariputra. And Buddha said, Shariputra is a Hinayanist and doesn't have the view, the scope of understanding that I do. I understand that in your previous life, very, very, very far away in a distant land that Shariputra doesn't even know is there, you circumambulated a stupa when you were a dog chasing a pig. And that virtue right there is the reason that this is happening. Shariputra can't see that. and I will ordain you. And the Buddha ordained this gentleman, and he became a foe destroyer in that lifetime. So you see what this is meaning. This is probably talking about Shariputra not having a presentation like no, that doesn't, anyway, this is just saying that if Shariputra, the Buddha's root disciple, who is in the Heart Sutra as a participant, but there's a thing about it. The reason I can say that he doesn't have the complete view, is that Shariputra was under the influence of the Buddha's magic during the Heart Sutra. Shariputra and Chenrezig, the question and answer, are being almost like, what's it called? When someone is like taken over, like what the oracle does, Nejung oracle, what is it? Possessed. So Shariputra and Chenrezig, the Shariputra dan Chenrezig Triwa dan Lenja, Sanjay Shela. Then Garishene de Ken Sabudu, Shariputra de Shiranimpo Yure, Yine Kon de Lenja Mason, Shela, Rebe, Triwa dan Lenja, Sanjay Shela. So this was all the blessing of the Buddha's mind that made this Heart Sutra occur between Shariputra and Chenrezig. So that's how you can say, well, why, if he was there, why, if he was teaching the Mahayana, he was at the perfection of wisdom teaching, what happened? Like, why doesn't he think it was real? He was there with the Buddha. Well, the Buddha, put some sort of spell according to scripture. But then you'll also read that there are already emanations of Buddhas acting to teach. So nothing's what it seems. And what's most important isn't the stories. It's kind of what they mean and what those stories teach us about our own spiritual path and our own potential. Dixon, Chichena Triwa Dan Lenja. Yabudu. Then the Donchi Jemang Sampa Dronkat Sewan. Yabudu. Okay. So now, just Rinpoche wanted to just say again that during this time when there's this terrible illness, COVID-19, people are suffering greatly from. It's important that we engage in practice, and if we can do the mantra of Medicine Buddha and the mantra of Tara, if we can say it out loud and then show it to others who are receptive. Buddhism is never proselytized; it's against the tradition. But those who are receptive, we can benefit ourselves and others. And just by making aspirations, if we're doing the prayers for others, we're benefiting them and connecting with them in our future lives. So it's just important that we engage in practice during this time of great trouble. Jipa J. So the mantra of Tara is greatly important because its meaning within it, if we look at the breakdown of it, we'll find that Tara is a liberator. So the mantra Om Tare Tu Re Soha has within it different syllables. So the Om represents the head of the mantra and represents Om, Ah, Hum. So the Om is just a summary of those other two as well. So it's Om, Ah, Hum. So the Om, and then the first Tare is referring to liberation from cyclic existence. So she's a liberator. We will be liberated from cyclic existence. And then it says she's Om Tare, Tu Tare is Gigi is a liberate. Tu Tare is a liberator from fear, the eight fears, the 8 negativities. And then Tu Re is liberation from diseases and illness. So freedom, liberated from cyclic existence, liberated from fear, and liberated in the 8 fears, and liberated from illnesses. And then Soha means thus it is, or it is said, or it's kind of like a stamp. I've heard another Geshe say it's like stamping at the end, like that's it, soha. So it's om, oma, hom, tare, liberator from cyclic existence, tutare, liberator from fear, the 8 fears, ture, liberator from illness, soha, it is so. So it's very powerful mantra to recite. Nene, Triwa, do we have any questions? Yes.
There's a lot of, today in this world, there's a lot of discontent.
Yes.
And it seems that it all comes from judgment. And I'm wondering how judgment fits in with it. It's dependent, because it's dependent upon things of people, whatever political vice they're into, that's their judgment. But it comes from something that's dependent. I'm wondering how judgment fits in. And is it possible to see the world without judgment?
Rinpoche, the tanda the jikten la the nutra chempo, tanda the me garpo de me napo nutra yure, zin jagdu, tanda yure, the lanka the protest mambo yure, charan tonson, the ne arila, ari the sinzi, tanda shira ducha du, then yone Rinpoche, ari sinzi tengsang ducha du ma gapo du, the ne the mesh the poor people gapo mare, the ne the Tama yure, the Arila, the Tama Shira yure, the Konsu, the Nga yakshu, then Konsu Sampa Nga yakshu, then Konsu Zingadu. The Garishene, the Nga Kon Yapio Marit Salodana, Garishene Nga Kon Yapio Marit Sampa. The J Tugdu. Okay, so the question is, there's a lot of trouble in the world right now. It just seems like there's an intense amount of division and a lot of fighting, disagreement politically, disagreement in terms of humanity, and it just seems like turmoil. And then we have this illness on top of it all. So judgment seems to be the motivator behind when we judge others, and how we judge this or that to be seems to be what drives negativity like this. Is this all interdependent, and is it possible to be judgment free? So that's the question. Then the lenja the tengsan the zambaling nutra chempo me gapo me napo gapo mare me gapo me napo kashe gapo mare then kontu zingdu. Then ari sinzi yapi omari tengsang. Then me kashet sampa nga yakshu. Then me gender sampa nga yakshu. Then the Jew garre. Garshene nga kon yapi omari sano dangudu. The Jew garre Rinpoche. That's so. Then ngatsu sem. The duchat sano dan the Jew garre. Yomo. The nyomon da tugudue kongitriwa ngatriwa yomare.
Yomur that tending in the Vamaru.
Less so.
What did the Coachasuna and Yomur someone knows.
Less so. The zambaling nutra the lay Rinpoche. Then susu le ngatsu kanga le nyambu kongitriwa mambo. Sopa. Chetu le so. Yene konsu susu nyawa the konsu le susu le. Okay, two chat. Okay, so let me just put it all together. Get a puzzle here. So all of the experiences that we have are controlled by our mind in terms of how we perceive them, what we judge them to be, and what they are. So just like all who or what created the three realms of cyclic existence? When the Buddha was asked, Rinpoche actually taught this today, I forgot to say it. When the Buddha was asked who or what created the three realms of cyclic existence, the Buddha answered by saying mind did. Mind made it. So all of the interactions and the discriminations that we make, how we discriminate between this is a shoe and that's a couch, all is created by the mind. And then the mind has what's called improper mental conduct, which is grasping at, and it comes from grasping at things as being truly established. So when we look at someone in front of us and we say, I don't like that person, in order for that emotion to come about, there has to be improper mental conduct. And what does that mean? First, we grasp at I as being truly established. I am Jeff. And then we grasp at them as being, I'll use Adrian because he's sitting in front of me. Adrian, he is Adrian. And I am truly established Jeff. He is truly established Adrian. And then the improper mental conduct has already begun because I've established it incorrectly. So then I start to think about, well, Adrian has this quality or that quality. I'm going to use like in this case instead of not like. I'm going to use the positive. Adrian has this excellent quality. He's been very, very generous in the past. And he was very nice to me before. It did a lot of good things for me. So therefore, Adrian's a great guy. All of this stuff has taken place because I think I truly exist, he truly exists. And then by grasping at myself, then I like things that are good for me, and are good reactions that I can react, that are beneficial to me, that I like. So then because I like it, because my karma has allowed me, has at that point then painted this, if you will, kind of picture of the person in front of me, because of all of this interdependence. You see, there's a lot at play. There's karma at play that's allowing me to have been helped, to see good things. So there's virtuous karma in a previous life that I did that allows me to see anything good at all. There's improper mental conduct that's going on that's making me sort it all out incorrectly, making me think that I exist truly, he exists truly, and this experience that I think is happening is a true experience because he was nice to me and he did these great things. So now I grasp at Adrian as being closer to me and better in some ways than I would to a stranger. Because I've assigned all of these things to Adrian and myself, and all these things that happened as being truly existent, and I grasp and cling to them. And the same thing's true if I didn't like Adrian, or if I thought he was a bad person. I would grasp at me as being truly, him as being truly, things I didn't like he did, I. And I'm not looking at the fact that in a previous life, that person was my mother. It's the same continuum. So it'd be like me saying, well, because you were kind to me yesterday, it doesn't matter. Today's today. So so you ask, is there a way to not have judgment? Yes, if you untangle that mess. If you start to get equanimity when you look at all beings with a lot of practice though. Can the world just get it? There's no magic, there's no wand, but through familiarization, which meditation is, through thinking over and over again about these things. I am not truly established. He is not truly established. His giving is not truly established. His nice words are not truly established. Bad words aren't truly established. He was my mother. He is my mother because the continuum's the same. So you start to use the 7-point cause and effect for realizing bodhicitta, recognizing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, extraordinary attitude. Then you realize bodhicitta. If you have bodhicitta, you have an equal desire to help everyone. So the judgment then, but you still judge, you still know this person's suffering more, this person isn't. You still can see what's going on. It's not like everything just gets erased. It's your reaction to it that changes. So your reaction changes, so the judgment that you're talking about that causes trouble goes away. But you have to get first realize emptiness, and realize that we are not truly established, and then generate bodhicitta in order to get to that place that I just spoke of, where you have an equal desire to help everyone, and you have an understanding of the nature of reality. So if you could get to there, now along the stages of getting to there, I bet you'd get better, you know, like you'd be a little less judgy. If you're practicing this path, a byproduct of it will be, you'll be a little bit better person. It just is going to happen. If you're practicing the 6 perfections every day, yes, we're focusing on it for our future lives, but the byproduct will be people will like you more. You'll be a better person in general. It's just the way that it is. It says it all over the teachings, that people are attracted to people who are peaceful and are generous. And it's just how you gather disciples is about being a good person to them. So you just, and that doesn't mean so even the teachers are training in non-judgment and training to, no matter how many times, a good teacher in Maitreya's text will tell you 100 times the answer to the same question and not get sick of doing it, because he or she loves you, wants to help you. So, you know, along the pathway, we change. I'm sure that if you hear the Dalai Lama, he said that, what is it, when he got 40? It's when he started taking it all seriously. He was a rascal when he was young. Spitballs at the Geshes from the top of the place he got to sit high so he could shoot spitballs at everybody. I mean, this is a process, or he's showing us it's a process at least. Okay, then Coleman and Scott, and then I want to get to, actually, I'm going to go back and forth. Hold on. Oh, there's only one. It's your lucky day. Happy birthday to Rinpoche and Dalai Lama. Tomorrow, for everybody who doesn't know, is Rinpoche's celebration day for his birthday, and it's the Dalai Lama's birthday. Rinpoche and the Dalai Lama were born the same year, so we celebrate their birthdays together. We all went through intense investigation this year into how we could do a party and COVID, and it's not possible. Rinpoche wants to have a party with Tibetan dancing and a lot of interaction, and we'll try really hard to not interact. We'll end up interacting, and if one person got sick, then shame on us. If we can social distance and have teachings are what get us liberated. So that's what's most important. If you can show up for a party for a Dalai Lama and Rinpoche, show up for a teaching, because that's what Rinpoche really wants you to do. He could care less about his birthday. Come on Zoom more. Now, I'm not speaking to you specifically. I don't even know who wrote that question. There's a rubber band over your name. Yeah, it sounded like I was scolding someone. I wasn't. Okay. I've just been around these parts for a lot of years and seen a lot of activity, a lot of excitement, and then not. Yes, Coleman.
Okay, so kind of makes me sad that like there are so many families that have been like broken, like divorced families.
Yes.
I don't know really how to phrase this, but
yeah, say it.
Why is it occurring?
Sure.
In our country, and is it like, can they still everyone lead like successful, happy lives even though their parents are split?
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. My parents were divorced when I was 7. That was hard. And I know what you mean. Rinpoche, the Arila, the Baba Dang Ama, Mambo Kamba Kaka Shagadu, Cheka, Kamba Kaka Shagadu, the Pugu Cheka, then the Pugu, the Kali Kabudu, Nga the Ire, Ngama, Nga Lodun, Ni Baba Dang Ama, Kamba Kaka Chasa, the Shera Kali Kabudu, Lela Yomare. Then kon chipa sedu. Then kon pugo chipa. The kon dan kon the jemen kamba kaka shasa. Then the garishene arila the yure triwa tambo. Then triwa nipa the pavada ama mena. Then chembo chana the debudwe. Nyomba chagarebe kongi triwa. Then and Garishene Arila the Mambo. Losu. Culture. I see, culture of the. So Rinpoche said, it's kind of the culture in the United States where divorce is acceptable. So he's saying that at first, where it's culturally wouldn't be considered acceptable in the same way. So you may have people who are together, but it's a horrendous situation, and they would stay like that, or they would just live separately, or the wife would get another husband. I swear, that's what in Tibet, they have two husbands sometimes. So there's nothing perfect. That's why I just want to start there.
Yeah.
There is no pure land of perfection between two human beings
Yeah.
who have two different karmas coming together and trying to interact. So that being said, it's the culture of the United States that 50% or more end in divorce. So I asked him, does that make it so the child can't be successful, or would maybe be meant to have mental problems, is what I asked, mental problems.
Yeah.
He said, no way.
Really?
And Rinpoche, the Chiran, the low gatsadu, the gompa, peson. Chiran the kamba shusun. Chiran amadan paba nyamdu shusun. Ju rimbo.
Logo ngata goman tabache.
Dene.
Logo na tabache ya nal ma yo phamanya de.
Lesso.
Otandere.
Lesso. Dene. Lo gatse the shilula peson.
Lo jujil ngala sayo.
Lesso. So when Rinpoche became a monk when he was 8, and he did go back to his home in the younger days, but mostly was, in the monastery. And then when he was 18, he went to Lhasa by himself, meaning not with his parents, on foot. Over a couple of months, he walked to go to Drepung Lhasa Ling. But the drapa mambo, the amadan paba yomare, then yabodu.
Gombal data papa mama yo maro. So.
Then Khensur the yapu chagudue. Sansan.
Na gombal ge tan java tolchi suja shelar wo to gombal tuje abo.
Less so.
So kale yo maro.
Less so.
So lojan chetuna.
Less so. So even in the monastery, you have a large amount of young monks that their parents maybe passed away, or their parents sent them to the monastery because they had no really way of supporting them. But there's a lot of situations that can make that arise, or, it's not possible for them to feed the child. So a lot of times they'll be, go to the monastery at a very young age and may not have interaction with their parents again, or may. It's not forbidden in any way. The parents can come visit. The mothers can't stay overnight because there's no women allowed just like no men allowed overnight in a nunnery, there's no women allowed overnight in a monastery on the actual grounds. It's like 5 feet away where you can stay. But it's just to follow the Vinaya.
Rebu sojin chabo gutong yo res. Tene shuki chajen le na pe jung ge tene chabo ba je tangres sojin.
9,000?
9,000.
So many of the monks, may have left their homes at a very young age and don't have a father and mother, and then the monastery becomes the parental figure. So parental figure, that's saying it takes a village. We have a lot of role models that can help, if only, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but we need a lot of different role models in our life to be a full human and to really develop as a good person. And the monks, he said, get to the monastery and they're, given, there's 9,000 monks when it was in Tibet, he said, that would come to the debate courtyard and debate. And the Baleb Jie, got it. So he would make everyone black tea with butter and barley flour. So they would have everyone, 9,000 monks would have a nice breakfast together. So they didn't have a sense of feeling alone. So that's what's important. So it's not necessary to have a father and mother in the conventional name, father, mother, to be successful. He said many of those monks who don't, maybe they've passed away or are very, very successful. And if they're able to study, they become great scholars and great humans, great people.
So even though maybe the parents don't love each other anymore.
It's got nothing to do with the kid. It's about them. Their problem's their problem. You know, I had to learn that my happiness is not dependent on anyone else. My happiness is dependent upon removing the things that cause me unhappiness. And that's it. No outside person can really make me happy per se.
Right.
Now it hurts that things weren't the way I look around and see other people's have been, but if I dwell on that too long, it's just ego grasping. If we have low self-esteem, that's pride reversed. It's grasping at ourselves as being the worst instead of the best. So it's just really important that we understand that we all have Buddha nature, all have the same potential to become a Buddha, and work with that, because that's what matters. You know, what our parents did or didn't do doesn't change our Buddha nature. Doesn't actually may help you because you've had suffering to want to get out. So yes, got. Did I? I'll come back if there's more.
That's how Lucy Jabo is Lucy. The one Lucy.
Lessa. So at Los Tanda.
No,
Oh, and before just Losaling alone, there were 5,000 monks. Just because there's Losaling, Gomang, Rato. So just Losaling, there were 5,000 monks. And everybody gets fed, and everybody has food. And everyone has a teacher. And then sometimes a benefactor would come. Someone will make an offering to the monastery and say, I want everyone to have rice today too. So how much does that cost? And then they pay for rice for the whole monastery. So he said sometimes benefactors would come and buy, you know, extra special food for everyone to have on special days. And then they would just put clarified butter like down the line somehow. There's some like just butter everywhere. In Tibet, there was just butter everywhere. I mean, I don't know, just everywhere. Like, it's just a joke. The pula maku kasakala. Yeah, so a lot of the people making offerings offered butter. So they always had a lot of butter at the monastery. So he said the butter tea came from making black tea with no milk. They just put lots of butter. I don't know if that's its origin, but he said that's why they had so much butter tea at the monasteries, because people would drop off vats of butter, and then they would make tea with it and not put milk. They would just use that. Chipagu. Yine sheda labi omare. Kali kabudu shuking apola chura dasidan then a shujachu then noisy. Yeah. I said, it sounds like it's so easy, but he said, there's a lot of rules. He said, a lot of laws. You get up, crack of dawn, and you start memorizing. And then you go and you either get a class with your teacher that he'll test you from the day before to see if you memorized the page or not. And if you didn't, he'll just tell you to go home, and like not nicely at all. And if you're a Tibetan, maybe even hit you with a mala. And then you go and debate what you learned the night before, and only that, because it's a waste of time. You're trying to learn something specific. So you debate that for hours and hours and hours. Then you go eat, and then you debate for hours and hours and hours and hours. And then you go eat and you debate for hours and hours and hours and hours. And in between there's some like thousands of monks doing a prayer ceremony together things, and then individual tutoring sessions. But there is nothing else going on but that. There's tea time here and there. They take a 10-minute break and go have tea at the tea stand if they have 5 cents. Mostly don't, you know. So it's really just a life that's dedicated only to studying and debate. And it sounds like something that, you know, is like wonderful. But when you get there, I would have to leave personally because I'm not realized, and go to Hubli, where they had a hotel and they had a television and they had people who knew the earth was round and stuff like that. So just understand that Geshe Nikki, one of the only American Geshes, told me, when you go to India, just remember, you know, you learn some things in school that are accurate, and don't become a Tibetan because you're an American and you have a Western education, and there are some things that are true, and everything isn't superstition. So it was a really... gosh.
아마를 김부터
Oh, and he's listening to me. So Geshe Nikki is actual abbot of Drepung Rato now. He has been for a while. But yeah, he's the abbot of Drepung Rato. He's an American Geshe. And he's amazing. He's really amazing. He's at the Tibet Center. If you ever can visit Tibet Center in New York City and he's there, Adrian has met Nikki. He's very, why don't I know his ordained name? It's so strange. It's terrible. I'm not saying his ordained name, but everyone knows him by that. So when I say that, everyone knows who I'm talking about. So Geshe La, thank you for all of your hard work if you ever see this. And thank you for being a good monk. I couldn't do it. Who else? Scott. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. I promise we won't. Yes, Don.
I'm just wondering if the spelling out that mantra, is there any way, you said it, but I wanted to write it down, the mantra.
Oh, you'll write it down? Okay.
Just gonna write it
Yeah.
down.
All right, Scott.
You were talking about what happens when the earth ends and the sun dies.
Yeah.
And he said, well, there'll be humans on another planet.
Yes.
So how are they defining what a human is? Like in that other planet, it may look like a dog. The dogs run the planet. That's their societal. It's not this shape that makes a human.
It's the realm. It's the experience of the realm. Rinpoche, may yina the zambaling, not to zambaling may yure. The chikshina sacha gender may yure, not to tuntukumare. Then may kanga tuna drapu do it. Then may kashe the key dan drapu do. May kashe the tona. May kanga the natsu ton dan drapu do it. And we'll always look like this kind of. Humans look like this, similar to this. He's just saying that the human realm, when it gets put together, you end up looking like this. This is what it puts together, just like a dog gets put together the way we see a dog put together. Now we're saying the way we put it together based on what we know right now and what we think a human is right now. You know what I mean? And that's all we can understand or be told. So, but yes, so Rinpoche is answering the question and saying, yes, humans. So if you study first the Pramanavartika Karika by Dharmakirti, and within the monastery, they study that text. And Saimo, in order to understand it, they study the collected topics of Duja, the mind and its awareness of Lorig, and then the Darig, signs and reasoning. And after that, they study for 7 years the perfection of wisdom teachings. And then they debate those. And then after that, they debate the Madhyamaka teachings for 3 or 4 years. And then after that, they debate either, depending on the monasteries, either Vinaya or Abhidharma. And then after they debate all of that, there's some sort of understanding of what this all is. And before that, it's quite difficult. Rinpoche, the Khensur Laptra Chenmo Chinso, then Khensur Tsampa, the May Sansan Rimbo Sansan Tonton, Yine Kanga Drapodu, Yine Garishene, the Gemma, Lo Ngaton Gemma, Chishina, the Sacha Genda. Garishene, the May Lay, the Dan Drapo Zugudu. Garishene. Gangisene Dendru, the Kashe, Chapoire, Kashe, the Lamboche Danki, Drapo Yomare. Yine May, Natsu Kanga Drapudu. Such agenda may key on Drapo Yurube. No, so there isn't. So there's something about the way that we kind of, we have 2 legs and 2 arms, something about the way that humans as a general basis are, is what they are no matter where they are. The definition of a human is that's what's suitable to be shown as human. That's the definition. What's suitable to be shown as human? That which has the aggregates of being born in the human realm. What do those look like? Similar to this. That's how it would go out through in a debate. So why is it that I just asked him, why does the karma make it look similar? And he said, because that's what the karma of the human realm makes. And I said, but why in the animal realm are there elephants and dogs? That's what I just asked him. I said, they don't look the same. And he said, yeah, because they have different looking animals, but humans have similar look. So he was, so as you, I forgot. So as you study these 5 texts, this will be clear to understand, and you'll come to find out that it meets science. That's what it is, that it meets science once you study all of these texts. And he says that he just heard of some great scientist who became a monk, just ordained, some great scientist just ordained. I don't know. He listens to Tibet news sometimes, so I don't know. The Chenrezig Kepa. Yeah, so he heard about it. Some famous scientist just ordained. It may be, he's a physicist guy. Yes.
My question is with regards to the different scopes. So the small capacity being the larger capacity.
Yes.
And there's a question, and the question being asked of being in the small capacity,
Yes.
and then it's being asked again medium capacity and the large capacity, different beings, the capacity, but the answer is the same by the teacher.
We can't say that as a rule, because the Buddha taught to scope and the Buddha didn't teach the same. The reason that the teachings were taught that way were because of being scope. Scope means aptitude. For beings of great capacity, it means what they can handle. So the Buddha taught what they could handle to who could handle what. The Buddha actually taught there was a self in some. The Buddha actually taught that there was a self sometimes. If you look at the Vibhashika school, the Great Exposition School, there's 18 sub-schools, and I think 5 of them kind of dance around a self. So the Buddha taught to scope. Rinpoche, the me kanga, the sanje, triwa jana, lenja chipa, the nis sedu, the yomar, jipu chungo, jipu din, jipu chembo, the sansan kon da yoba, sansan da meba. Ribe. Okay, what I just said. Anybody else? There's one more question, and then we'll do the concluding prayers. Oh, thank you, Priscilla. So Geshe Nikki is known as Rato Ken Rinpoche now, because of course, he's an abbot. So when you use the formal, when anyone becomes an abbot, they become Ken Rinpoche. Ken means abbot, Rinpoche means precious one. So precious abbot. So Rato's precious abbot. And his monk name is Geshe Tupten Lundu. So thank you so much. I'd like to honor those who have done what I could not. Thank you. So let's do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. And I thank you. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stand till samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Guti Shabi Denama.